United States and the free world.
Millions of people travel here to witness the thriving culture, immerse themselves in history, and take part in political change.
However, amidst the buildings glorifying freedom and prosperity, there are almost 12,000 people living on the streets.
In a city where countless monuments depict how far we have come as a nation, minority groups are still underrepresented and often ignored by the federal government and society.
Our mission is to confront DC's growing homeless population and hear minority leaders who have become prominent in social justice tell their stories.
So my name is Jessica Venegas, and my title is Director of Strategic Partnerships for a nonprofit based in New York City called Community Solutions, and we do work really to end homelessness around the world.
I'm the CEO of Funders Together to End Homelessness. We are a national network of philanthropy that is committed to preventing and ending homelessness through learning about best practices, networking, sharing what's happening in the field, but also doing policy and advocacy and helping our members, who largely come from private foundations, community foundations, and United Ways, go deep on issues that they know affect ending homelessness. I know nationally we see close to 600,000 people who could be unsheltered at any time, and a large amount of those folks are children. Over 40% are people who are children living in families.
Yes, I mean, I think the government plays a big role. Funding is one of them. Government is built to be responsive. It's not built to be proactive, you know. It's big and it's slow and it's meant to set policy, but policy should not be quick, right? Like, we should really think about it. It changes things for the long term. And so it's your role as an advocate to make sure that we're being responsive. So part of the majority's responsibility is to be speaking up for what we think government should be doing. And they should be responsive to that. It seems to me that homelessness is an area where, I mean, from whatever angle you're coming from, it's something you don't want to see, right? Like, you don't want anybody living on the street, and we can all agree, whether we're conservative or liberal or we're rich or we're, like, you know, working class, that it means something to have a home, and it means something to be able to have a base from which to launch your life. What is the majority in this case? The majority that has a network, that has support, kind of owe the minority here that doesn't. I think it's you know, some kind of a resource to help support them, to understand where they're coming from, to dialogue with them, to respect them. And I don't know, like, I don't have a problem paying taxes if I know that it's going to help support someone.
Well, that's a complicated question. I think that, you know, as a person of color, the conversations right now happening at the national level can be overwhelming. This is something we live with every day, and so I think three things that I see happening that are moving in the right direction is that people are having conversations that are educating themselves. A lot of times people look to people of color to say, explain your experience to me, and that can be tiring and overwhelming and not very helpful. And asking the questions, I mean, a lot of what we experience is the unconscious bias and the biases that we have. I have them, you all have them, and so I think personal step you can take is thinking of, like, unpacking those biases, and then how do they play out in the institutions and organizations you belong to. So thinking about things like the diversity in your student leadership structures, or in your clubs or organizations, or even in your circle of friends, and thinking about that work in terms of joining social justice groups, to think about how can you, even though this work doesn't directly affect you, how can you be a part of the work that they're trying to do.
Now I feel like we have to solve this. Like, there's no reason why anybody should be homeless in this country. There are episodes that happen in people's lives, but we should not have people that live on the street for 20 years. It's not okay. It's just, so it's changed my life in that, like, I had a passion for housing. I feel housing is a base and it's important, but it's changed my life in that now I'm not going to stop until it's solved.
Well, you're starting to do the right thing, having the conversations, telling the stories, being able to, I think, be at tables where diversity is the imperative and it's not just about including people or tolerating people, but understanding where people are coming from. I think that's the most important thing, is to figure out what issues you're passionate about, educate yourself on why these issues came to be, what are some of the historical structures in place that lead to things like homelessness and poverty. And I think it's well-meaning and good to volunteer and serve a meal or go work at a homeless shelter, but think about what you could do to change the things that would bring people to that circumstance. Ask the questions like, why is someone needing to go to a food pantry every week, and what are the policies that we could change, or what are the stories that maybe we could tell? What's the education we can do of our local policymakers and elected officials to really change the situation fundamentally for that person? So I think I always say that we need to get away from a charity mindset and think about change, not just charity. So charity is really important and helps people immediately. But I think that your generation and students in general can think about, well, what are we going to do to change what's making someone face this experience in general? Wherever you are on your social justice journey will determine how far you want to go. Just being educated can take you a long way in the work that you do in the future. But thinking about, do I want to join organizations? There's an organization called Standing Up for Racial Justice that mostly is working with white people on how they interact with community of colors on justice issues. That's one step. The other step could be thinking about, some of the more progressive organizations. So there are outlets, I think, for people to be part of the movement, but you have to educate yourself and start to have the dialogues around what are some small-scale initiatives, because you're not going to be able to change the whole world. I think all of us working together on certain interventions can do that, and I think that's where you start.
Our journey to DC was both eye-opening and inspiring.
Through our interviews with Jessica Venegas and Amanda Andier, we learned that the most important avenue for change is communication. To not only hear what the minority has to say, but to actively listen and respond to the issues they face.
In turbulent political times, this is more imperative than ever.
Even in the midst of hate and conflict, the voices of the oppressed and forgotten can and must take precedence.
Change has already begun, but it's up to each of us to continue and kindle that change, so we might give each person what they are owed, a chance to live their life without being limited by poverty, gender, race, or sexual orientation.